Was talking about the importance of glaciers on hydrology, and this is exactly what we're going to focus on with Professor Pomeroy, who is a distinguished professor, Canada Research Chair in Water Resources and Climate Change. He's the director of this at the University of Saskatchewan Centre for Hydrology, also the director of the Global Water Futures Program in Canada, and the co-chair, as you could see, of the WMO High Mountain Summit. So, Professor Pomeroy, please. Your presentation now. If you can. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And first thanking our Icelandic hosts and the World Meteorological Organization for making this happen, and also Carolina Adler for presenting so well on the High Mountain Summit and the outcomes from that. And that video with full sound will be on the website in time, I think, so it's a wonderful, wonderful video. Anyway, I want to talk about some of the hydrological impacts of climate change, mountains, glaciers, and snow, how they interact together. And also from that, I'll sort of tell you a tale of two worlds, of plenty and of lack of plenty from that. So let's go back to our high mountains. One way we can envision them as an area of extreme importance for us in the future is that this is where our rapidly changing atmosphere intersects with the cryosphere, key ecosystems, diverse societies, and headwaters for rivers that support over half of humanity. Critically important for us, and they must remain a strong international focus for our survival, for our food production, our energy, for the vast areas downstream of the mountains that are completely impacted by them. And it's important to remember the societal relevance of climate change impacts on hydrology. So how can these results be mobilized so they're relevant for decision making? How can we promote sustainable development under conditions of rapid social, agricultural, industrial, cryospheric, and hydrological change? And then how do we build capacity in our mountain communities around the world so they can manage and adapt to the impacts of that change? And this is no small matter. When we go through global mountain climate and water security challenges, we have rising temperatures at high elevations, enhanced warming, resulting in drought, in wildfire, in enhanced evapotranspiration, in some cases in changing vegetation, which vegetation cover can equal or override the impacts of climate change directly on mountain hydrology, particularly afforestation. Mountain snow cover decline in many regions, earlier and slower melt in some areas, restricted drift formation, which reduces summer water supply. And then the rapid degradation of high mountain regions with changing water supply, more GLOFs, sea level impacts. The degradation of water quality in many mountain regions has become a local crisis. It's not pervasive everywhere, but it's a growing problem and one that we need to work on. The risks from extreme events, many of the world's major floods have derived from mountain flooding and unsustainable use of water associated with that. And that unprecedented environmental change in mountains resulting in landslides, rapid glacier melt, more rainfall, more extreme events from rainfall, changing the whole system. So when we look at this whole system, there's tremendous urgency and significance to it. Our cryosphere has already passed many tipping points. 1.5 degrees is way too much for many glaciers and snowpacks already, and for the permafrost in many parts of northern Canada and other areas. Our ecosystems are changing. Our glaciers are becoming covered with algae, which is further darkening them beyond the darkening due to melt alone. We're losing the snow and ice damming impact in the high mountains and other areas that has released water in the warm season, which has been very beneficial for humanity in many parts of the world, and our irrigation systems are built out around that. Flood risk is endemic, and for sustainability we need better information, forecasts, and predictions. And importantly, we're failing to meet the sustainable development goals relating to water and climate in mountains and cold regions. It threatens our environment and it threatens our civilization. So international collaboration is actually key for that. I was delighted in October of this year, 40 years after I first worked on the Athabasca Glacier, to bring Greta Thunberg to that glacier show her where it was 40 years ago, and then for a very long walk to where it is now, and look at the tremendous change that we're seeing in that particular area. But the science is going on around the world. So I'll zoom into one particular part of the world where strange things are happening that are utterly unexpected, and this is interesting. So in northwestern Canada, on the Alaska border, is the St. Elias ice field. It's the third largest in the world after Antarctica and Greenland. Many people haven't heard of it, but it's still pretty big, and it's really important. And it's declining rapidly with the most rapid melt this year. The Cascawelsh Glacier is one of the well-studied glaciers of the St. Elias Mountains, and this has formed the headwaters of the Slims River, which feeds into Kluane Lake here, which is a beautiful lake along the Alaska Highway and part of the UNESCO World Heritage Site and National Park. The Cascawelsh Glacier has been retreating rapidly through its valley, and in 2016 it retreated enough that the water diverted, and there is an act of what we call river piracy. So you see the skull and crossbones. There's the pirates, but they're glaciers, not ships and swashbucklers and eye patches. Anyway, what happened is that the water started diverting down this way into the Cascawelsh and Alsek River to the United States and the Pacific Ocean, instead of that way up through Kluane Lake and into the Yukon River and the Bering Sea. So it's an incredible event, and we essentially saw the diversion of a vast part of the Kluane Lake river basin is now diverted and flowing in a different way. So where is the water? Well, look at the lake. It's not good. That's the Slims River Delta in June 2018, when the freshet would normally be rushing through there. It's just a trickle of water coming through. This is the lake level as it has been over the past century. This is the lake level in the last 3 years. This lake is inhabited by indigenous populations. Their harbors were dry. Their ability to take tourists minimal. Their lifestyle, fishing lifestyle, destroyed like that one summer. So that's how fast this can hit, and that's how destructive this can be. Walking around there in June, you're liable to see dust storms, and that's how you tell you're approaching Kluane Lake now, is by the dust. So we've run forecast models on that looking to the future, and it's not very good. The glacier is not coming back. The snowmelt's coming earlier. The lake will rise earlier, but it's not going back to its previous levels. So based on that, the harbors have been rebuilt. I'll take you to Marmot Creek very quickly in the Canadian Rockies. It's a research basin established by one of the co-founders of the IPCC, who hails from Canada, and Jim Bruce, formerly heavily involved with the WMO. But before that, he was helping get weather stations in there in the early 1960s in high mountains. Very smart thing to do, because now we can trace climate change over a 50-year period in this particular environment and work out the impacts of that. By the way, that's an eddy correlation system in 1965 in the mountains that formed the basis for Gordon McBain's master's thesis. So there's a tremendous history here to this area. And we can run high-resolution atmospheric models coupled to hydrological models for Marmot Creek forward and look at its future. And the future for its snowpack is not very good. So RCP 8.5, another 5 degrees of temperature warming. We've already had 3.5 since the 1960s. We've already had the snowpack cut in half at the lower elevations. And looking forward, we see much less snow, particularly at the low elevations, particularly where the forest has been clear-cut in this environment. And hang on here. It's and for the basin as a whole, 84 millimeters of snowmelt drop. Moving forward, we can look at the stream flow, and it's rather different. There's resiliency in the stream flow response. It's earlier, but in fact we have more water coming through because precip is going up. So it's rainfall driven, not so snowmelt driven, and the timing is very flashy now. So we see flashiness, greater peaks, greater droughts, but overall an 18% increase in snowmelt discharge. When we go to a large basin, the Mackenzie River Basin, 1.8 million square kilometers, massive, and this flows from the Athabasca River and the oil sands area up to Nunavik and the Arctic Ocean at 70 degrees north. And here, running through various scenarios through a mesh model of this environment basin, shows tremendous increases in stream flow through the future heading towards the Arctic Ocean. What's worrisome to us is that in the headwaters region, in the Athabasca, are the tar sands or oil sands. And how are they going to keep the oil ponds in place with the increased runoff generation in that vicinity, along with the permafrost decline here? So these are difficult challenges going forward for the future on the Mackenzie, the largest northward flowing river in North America. So what's the future looking at? We need a future of integrated observations, predictions, and services, not a dystopian future. And this painting by Gennady Ivanov represents the chief of the Vuntut Gwich'in in North Yukon, saying that climate change was like a slow motion nuclear explosion in their environment. And so he tried to represent that artistically. So anyway, thank you so much, and we'll carry on.
Thank you so very much.